We're live.
All right, greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Louisiana State Board of Social Work Examiners Executive Committee meeting. The time is now 9:15 a.m. The date is March 12th, 2025. At this time, I'm going to ask for a brief roll call from our secretary.
Hyacinth McKee.
Present.
Jamie Barney.
Present.
Laura Sinceri, present.
And we have our administrator, Emily D'Angelo, that is present. I thank you all who are in attendance today. The purpose of this executive meeting, committee meeting, is to review some of the pressing matters that we have as a full board presented before us. The intention is for the executive committee to meet, review some of these pressing matters, and then certainly bring this information to the full board for review. So before you, we have an agenda. At this time, I'm going to read the expectations of the meeting. A public comment period will be permitted for each agenda item requiring a vote. Members of the public who wish to provide public comment must use the raise hand function to be recognized by the chair. Any person may provide public comment only once per agenda item. Public comments are limited to 2 minutes per speaker. Public comments are limited to the item being considered by the board. The chair may disregard or terminate any public comment that does not comply with this paragraph. Attendees of the public portion of the meeting can obtain general continuing education hours. An email regarding continuing education credit will be sent within 30. The floor is now open for any public comment. You must use the raise hand feature in the chat to be recognized. Okay, hearing no public comment, the public comment period is now closed. At this time, we are going to take a little look at the agenda to see if there's any additions or changes or adjustments that need to be made to the agenda. If none, I'll entertain a motion regarding the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
All right, it's been moved by Jamie to approve the agenda, seconded by Bora. Any public comment pertaining to the agenda, today's agenda? Okay, objections or abstentions? Hearing none, agenda is approved as written and published. All right, so now we're gonna go on to the notice of an intent that was published on January 20th, 2025, consideration of public comments. We had a public hearing that took place. And at that time, we had, in my opinion, a large volume of public attendance. And we had some public comments that was also submitted to the board previously in writing to the public, to Emily, from the public, and we also had individuals who vocalized their comments publicly. With that being said, we have several several comments that we've received, and at this time, as the executive committee, our intention is to review some of the comments and then send it to the full board for approval and review. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each one of the proposed promulgated rules in summation. So I'm not going to read line by line because, again, we had a public hearing that did this line by line. I'm just going to go in summation, and then we will decide as an executive committee what our comments and report to the full board. So at this time, chapter 1, standards of practice, 101, we had no public comment. 111, practice requirements. We had several public comments. One of the adjustments that was recommended was to remove information as it relates to field placement, allowing to provide services under supervision, and to keep social workers supervising students in the field placement must indicate their supervisory function when co-signing records. 113, social work relationships.
I'm sorry, hold on a second.
Mhm.
Can you repeat those one more time? What
Okay.
was the recommendation?
Yeah, no worries. So, for 101, no public comment. 111, practice requirements, subsection G4. The recommendation was to redact language as it relates to field placement, specifically allowing to provide services under supervision. And to keep social workers supervising students in field placement must indicate their supervisory function with co-signing records.
So Jamie, for clarification, that's how it was published in the notice of intent. The public comments received was in support of how it reads in the notice of
Okay,
intent.
okay, so it wasn't
Not a
changed to.
recommendation from the public. to
Okay,
change
okay,
it.
okay, that's, okay.
All right, 113, social work relationships, and y'all stop me at any time, okay? Like, again, this is a summation. I'm not gonna be doing line by line. Social work relationships. There was a concern about reasonable social worker and that language of reasonable being somewhat subjective. So the comment was to consider removing the word reasonable. And I don't know if you all have any concerns about that. I'm in agreement with concurring with the public to remove reasonable. What's your thoughts about reasonable?
I think there may be a legal reason why reasonable was put in there, and so
Okay.
I think that's something that we would need to consult with legal on.
Okay, and so let's make a note that there may be some reasons why there's reasonable.
Right.
And to consult with legal counsel about it.
No, what sticks out in my mind is when if there's a hearing or a trial related to practice, that's the standard that the social worker is measured against. Like, is this what a reasonable social worker would have done?
So it might be a legal
I think it's a
word.
legal
huh?
term.
Okay, so let's consult, I'll make a note of that. All right. 117, no public comments. 125 pertaining to social work educators. It looks like that we will, they were in support of that. No changes needed in 125. There was support in 125A and 125 subsection B, support. Subsection C, commenters recommended the deletion of the first sentence. The first sentence read, the relationship of a social work educator to their students is comparable to that of a social worker to their client. Public resoundingly felt that that statement should be redacted. Any thoughts about that?
I'm wondering if any members of the public provided feedback on why they were against that.
So, yeah, because students should, from an academic standpoint, your student is not your client for so many reasons.
Right.
Right?
Well, I haven't worked in academia.
Yeah, and so, the role of a client implies so much, right? Informed consent, contractual relationship, and the university doesn't provide that, right?
Okay,
You're just
okay.
enrolling into a program.
Okay.
And so with clients, you have to do this whole termination. That's
Mhm.
a student, right? That person may be in a social work program on Wednesday and on Thursday decide to be in a master's program. And so there was a lot of public comments about having that sentence being redacted.
And the paragraph still maintains its intention with maintaining appropriate boundaries without that sentence. So I'm okay with the removal. I just was wondering what the concern was. Mhm.
Yep. Any other comments about that? Okay, so it seems like we're in the space of concurring with the public with that redaction of that first sentence.
Mhm.
Okay, all right, subsection D. There were no change to that. Our public was in support of that. All right, chapter 3. Definitions of social work. Educator. Commenters recommended change in the language to ensure that the word volunteering be included. Social work education is defined as an individual employed by in a contract or volunteering professional services with an educational institution, social work program for the purpose of educating social work students and holds a registration, certification, or license in the field of social work. So the request was to include volunteer professional services because we have, what is it, practicum field instructors that are not paid. They're volunteered to do that. Okay. All right. Any questions about that?
Mhm.
All right, 305. Qualification of registration, no public comment. 307. Supportive of continuing early testing for students in the final semester before graduation. 309. The comment was misinterpreted in this section to apply to all applicants. This is specific to military applicants and military spouses. 309's application procedure is only specific to military applicants and military spouses. 311, no public comment. 313, there were some comments concerned about the increase for fees as it relates to hardship for potentially new social workers. However, we did get some verbal support in the increase of fees once our administrator shared with the public that we have not had a increase in fees in 25 years. Any comments regarding an increase of fees or anything the executive committee wants to discuss about increasing fees?
No, I still think it's something that I would prefer to go forward with in the rules.
Okay. All right, or anything? Still, okay, all right, we're gonna go on. Okay. I don't know why the thing's doing that. I thought I had it off. Okay, I had it on vibrate. Okay, so let's see, let's move right on to 317, continuing education requirements. Of course, we have a whole chapter 13 that's covering that. 319, reciprocity and endorsement, no public comment. Inactive status, we had some public comment about that. A lot of public comment in support of inactive status. Wanted to request some clarification regarding the hours, required hours for continuing education. And for clarity, 325B says that a social worker on inactive status shall maintain half of the continuing education units required of active social workers. And I remember when the Rules Committee was trying to craft this, and I don't want to overspeak the committee, but I know that there was intention why they did not put numbers in there, because those numbers might change in the future. By saying the word have leaves that, if you will, not so much flexibility, but that leaves space for if the hours should increase to 30 in 6 years, that the half would be the 15. So I remember why the Rules Committee was very skillful in leaving the word half there. So to answer that question, if the license requires 20 hours for an active status licensee, then the inactive status licensee will be required to do 10. That's what that half meant. What's y'all dialogue about that? What's your
I see
thinking?
a comment, basically a question about how many ethics hours is required.
How many
So-
ethics?
Right, so.
That would be
here-
1.5.
Right, so
Mhm,
I wanted that clarified, just for
mhm.
Yeah.
ethics and for supervision, I guess. Those two would be half, literally half,
Right.
whatever it is at the
So,
time. Yeah.
so once you become and to my understanding, and that's what we need to have dialogue. Once you are in active status, you're not a BAX.
That makes sense, yeah.
You have to be an active licensee in order to be a BAX. So I think, to try to help people understand that piece.
I'm sorry, that makes sense to me,
Mhm.
but I don't know if I believe everyone will.
Understand it.
Understand
that.
that, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Maybe
Yeah.
the supervision part, there should be a little bit of maybe a comment about, is it in there about?
I don't know. I don't
Is
know.
it still published?
Yeah, it's still published. So the piece is because you have to have an active license to be
Right.
a board approved
Yeah.
clinical supervisor. You can't be an inactive clinical supervisor.
So
Oh, that makes sense, but does it say that?
Right, it doesn't.
I just wanna make sure it
You can
says,
see how people can
'cause if so, we're
interpret it
covered.
differently, and.
and I don't know how much of that would be intentional, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like,
Right, it would just be, well, it says half, so I'll just get half for ethics and.
oh, and then I can still just do the bags
Right,
and.
because those are the two things that are a little bit different. And I could see, we do have lots of issues with supervision, misunderstandings and all.
So this is 3.
So that's
Okay.
325 is requesting clarification of approved format for obtaining the required 10 hours of continuing education. Is distance learning limited to 5 hours? Again, once these rules are promulgated, we won't have this whole distance versus in person because all hours will be eligible to be done in a virtual format, right? So once you promulgate the rules to say that social workers are able to get all of their hours virtually if they choose, you won't have to deal with the some could be in person, some not in person. You won't have to deal with that anymore. And then is requesting clarification on how many ethics hours are required. It will be half, 1.5 is half of 3. Okay.
I think that rule is sufficient.
Okay. All right, 327, emeritus status. Commenters request clarification of approved format for obtaining the required 10-hour. Again, the word distance is going away. We don't even use the word distance anymore because virtual, again, is what is going to be allowed. A lot of support for the emeritus status. How many ethic hours? Again, 1.5. It will be half. Okay. All right. Any other questions about inactive emeritus? Okay. All right. All right, chapter 5. 503, no public comment on 503. 505, no public comment. 509, telesupervision subsection B. Comments that subsection B is not worded clearly. Therefore, the meaning is unclear. And I think that there was some questions about how 509B was worded, particularly the removal of, what sentence that was we were supposed to remove? The supervisor shall be a licensed board approved clinical supervisor. No. social workers engaged in electronic, okay, let me read it. Social workers engaged in electronic practice and providing services to clients located in Louisiana shall be licensed to practice in Louisiana. We in agreement with that sentence?
I
Okay.
read this about 3-4 times.
I know, I did too. Social workers, and we did it as a full board too. Social workers who are licensed to practice in jurisdictions other than Louisiana and or who are in pursuit of clinical licensure in another state shall be licensed to practice in Louisiana to engage in telesupervision. Period, right?
Mhm.
All right. Social workers shall be actively engaging in the practice of social work in Louisiana to receive telesupervision, which is said, right?
Mhm.
Okay, in the last sentence, the supervisor shall be a Louisiana licensed board-approved clinical supervisor. So what is it in here that is not worded clearly as an executive committee? Anything that you see is not worded clearly.
No, I think, it's very, I think it's kind of repeating the same thing in different ways to catch nuances that arise and make sure there's clarity about what is and what is not allowed. And so people, I can see how someone could look at that and say, like, I must be missing something, when really
Yeah.
it's just plain, like, it is just exactly what it says.
And I want to say that it went through supervision committee, then it went to full, I mean,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it went through several eyes. And so if I'm, if we're missing something, I'm wondering what the public recommendation was. Now, I don't have a motion on the floor. I will entertain public comment when it's the appropriate time. But this has gone through, this particular rule, proposed rule has gone through several sets of eyes. And so I'm trying to understand, what's the part that's not worded clearly?
So the comments about it being unclear were from two persons only? Like the people listed are the persons who, are there more than, cause I see there with the same entity, so I'm wondering if there's other persons that would have commented that wouldn't be included here.
Yeah, so I don't have that answer right off the top of my
Okay.
head, Jamie, because it was people that, but I know that these individuals, from my understanding, had written comments too as well, right, Emily? The two that's listed under this 509, they had written comments about the concern. I mean, about 509B. And then, of course, there are people publicly that.
Oh, so this is only the people that's listed are people that submitted written.
And some
Okay.
said public, there's some verbal in there, you'll see it in there.
If it was verbal, I put
It put it on the
verbal
side.
in
Parentheses.
And so if someone, if it's not listed as verbal, I mean, no one else commented? Like this encompasses all the comments?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So again, do y'all see, because I don't see where it's
Yeah.
unclear. I
Yeah,
am,
and I think it sounds a little repetitive, but like Jamie said, it's because there could be some misinterpretations.
Mhm.
And I think that this is based on the different situations that have come before the board. And so it's really trying to clear up, hey, you must be practicing actively to get, the supervision. And, you must have the license in Louisiana. And it's just, I think it was intentionally written that way because of the misunderstandings in the past or misinterpretations.
okay, so we're gonna move forward, all right, y'all? All right, so, okay, so I think C was fine. A bags license, we shall not provide solutions for fine. Okay, yeah, I think C was fine. It was B they had some questions about. All right, subsection D, 1, clarification of the training for the telesupervision, okay? And so, they wanted to specify who must take the training, right? All right, so D clearly says any social worker well, no, the recommendation now, no. D says, licensed social workers who engage in telesupervision shall. So if you are the supervisee and the supervisor, you are considered a licensed social worker. So if you're engaged in telesupervision, you shall take this course, right?
Mhm.
That was clear. But the commenter was asking for more clarification. So the recommendation is any social worker providing or receiving telesupervision shall. Right?
Mhm.
So to add more clarification to the concern, even though D clearly says licensed social workers who engage in telesupervision shall. But to add more clarification, any social worker providing or receiving telesupervision shall complete 1.5 hours of continued education in the area of telesupervision. This is a one-time requirement and documentation of completion shall be provided to the board. There was another comment that was from the public that was asking, what we y'all, and I'm summation, right? Summation, would you receive retroactive certificates for this? And so the intention is no, because we didn't have this is the first time we had a telesupervision law or rule. So we can't accept a retroactive training from 2 years ago for a rule and a law that just took effect this year, right? And so this will be a moving forward as it is required under this new law and rule. So you can't have a certificate from 2017 saying, oh, I was trained in telesupervision, use this as, my evidence of training. Okay, so any thoughts about that, y'all, with the changes? Do you think the change makes some clarification to,
Yeah.
Yes,
okay,
I like adding providing or receiving.
you like added, okay, all right, okay. All right, subsection D3, we're moving through it. All right, so commenters believe that this requirement is not possible for all settings, right? Particularly school social workers who have an emergency. So, and so if we read subsection D3, ensure that clients whose records may be discussed as part of supervision provide written informed consent. Some of the changes should be barring an emergency. Ensure that clients whose records may be discussed as a part of supervision provide written informed consent for the electronic transmission of confidential records and information in accordance to HIPAA. Okay, and I think the concerns of the public was if it was an emergency, like how are you going to be able to get this written informed consent in an emergency situation?
One of the examples given was school social workers and
Exactly.
having a student emergency.
Yes. So that's why barring an emergency is a recommended change.
For electronic transmission. So when we say electronic transmission, are we talking about sending written correspondence, or we're talking about a discussion through electronic channels?
Good point, because a phone discussion is still considered electronic transmission of information or either,
Right,
right.
so, because if it's written documents, it's a little different. And I think the rule stands, but if it's a verbal discussion, I could see the. When I see electronic transmission, I'm thinking written documentation.
I think the issue was if it was in a case of emergency, that was the concern that people had. Like if it was an emergency, how would we obtain this written informed consent if it was an emergency? That's what I see the concern is.
I think I'm thinking of it because I think I'm trying to, fully understand the commentary and grasp what like a merger situation would require you to electronically transmit written documentation to a supervisor. You know what I mean? Like I don't, but I mean, I don't think there's
Because to your
harm in
point,
it.
if it's a written, you should get the written consent.
Yes, exactly.
You had time enough to transmit that, you had time, I know what you're saying.
Yeah,
In
but-
practice, you saying, yeah, right, I get what you're saying in practice.
Yeah, so I guess it doesn't necessarily hurt, because that's still a judgment thing, and if it's the
Uh-huh.
clinical supervisor, they're gonna be the expert in the situation, kind of helping guide if the supervisee is reaching out to them for support. So I think it doesn't hurt. I guess I just don't understand exactly when that would happen. But I'm okay with it.
But I wanna put a little star by it, right? Cause we might could probably,
I might be overthinking it.
well, we might could get
Well,
some
But if
full
if
board
it-
anyway.
If it crossed your mind
Right,
though,
yeah.
that could become an issue.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna put a little star by and then we're gonna bring it to full board too, as well and get them to weigh in. Okay, all right, so now the next one, y'all, is on subsection D6 as it relates to written, the word written as it relates to contract, right? So, the comment was supervisors technically don't write the contract because we have a database that will be doing that, or will be, the information will be documented inside the database. But the word written is just semantics. The responsibility to initiate the contract, draft the contract, however word you want to use it, is on the supervisor. Written is a semantic word. It is the responsibility. So if the computer should shut down, if we didn't have Certami, the supervisor will be initiating, drafting, and writing the contract. So the question was, if the supervisor doesn't write it, the word shouldn't be in there.
And then it's not saying, it doesn't, in the rule, I don't see where it's lending to who wrote it. It just says written. It is documented, yes, I agree with her.
Right. The written is just a semantic. Also, the database will have a drop-down box or an option for the supervisor to indicate that it's a hybrid supervisor relationship, or it's in person, or it's in full telesupervision, right? And if the supervisor and supervisee decide that they want to engage in a telesupervision relationship, they will still need to do the 1.5. Even if you're in a hybrid, you still would need to do the 1.5, is what I'm understanding. What y'all thinking? That sounds about right. Okay. And then there's nothing that would prohibit someone from having occasional supervision sessions via telesupervision, right? So we've had people that, I don't know, bad weather, and they had to have their supervision, telesupervision means, the intent would allow for that, right? But you have to complete the training if you intend on engaging in telesupervision.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, moving right along. Chapter 7, no public comment. I'm saying yay on that, because.
The public comment.
Chapter 7 has no public comment. Oh, 705, yep, 705. 701, no public comment. 703, no public comment. 705 recommends amending to include oversight of the program and program manager by the board. Any thoughts about that? In terms of, so I mean, the program manager is the contractor of the board, and we receive recommendations from the program manager as it relates to how to move forward with social workers that are in this Recovering Professional Program Authority. The board recognizes that, yes, that in its authority, there is a final say there. But my concern is I don't want to get into a situation where perhaps the potential individual that's in the program is not, how can I say it, amendable or agreeable to the interaction between the program manager, and then feels like the board can dismiss the recommendations of the program manager as it relates to the requirements that the licensee has to have, right? So what I'm saying is that we recognize that the consultant, if you will, the contractor, is actually acting on behalf of the board in their role as the Recovering Professional Program Authority. That's part one. Part two, I do recognize that it's important for the board to continue to maintain oversight, but that's already understood that the individual can file a complaint with the board if they have an issue with the program manager, right? So the individual has a right to say, you know what, I'm gonna file a complaint with the board because I feel like I'm not, getting heads or tails of my service, right? So I don't know if there's a necessity to include oversight of the program by the board in there. What's your thoughts about that?
I agree that it's understood. I was just rereading that chapter, well, that subsection of the chapter
Yeah,
to see how it was worded.
yeah.
But I agree, I think it's because it's given in 705A, the board, the authority.
Right.
The board may
We
utilize
have it.
its discretionary authority, so.
Right, we have that already, so I'm thinking, and again, the individual can file a complaint with the board. I mean, they can very well, go to the board on what their experience, so. um,
Okay.
Are y'all okay with that? I'm gonna move on to chapter 9, right? All right, so chapter 9, of course, it repealed and replaced with chapters 10 and 11. Chapter 10, procedural rules for disciplinary hearings. 1002, no public comment. 1004, no public comment. 1006, no public comment. 1008, public comment regarding email being not the guaranteed method of delivery and should not be the only delivery method used. Another comment supporting certified mail, return receipt requested being included in the language. The language says, unless a more specified method of service is required by these rules, notification to the licensee or applicant shall be sufficient if such notification is sent to the applicant's or licensee's email address or first-class mail to the applicant's or licensee's mailing address on file with the board. I mean, it seems like it's clear to me. Do y'all think something needs to be clearer in there?
No, I think it's fine.
It's clear, okay.
It seems they just would prefer, I guess, a different delivery method.
Yeah,
Like, it doesn't seem.
but it says mailing address on file,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Emily,
I think it's the.
Yeah, the concern was that, email isn't always delivered,
Mhm.
but we've had the same experience with certified mail and regular mail
Yes.
to the tune of me not getting a returned correspondence a year later, saying it was unable to be delivered. Some people don't receive maybe the notice that they have certified mail that they need to go pick up. So it comes back to me saying refused, and so I think just having this, we could continue our procedure, but I think having this just adds an extra layer of protection if that's the way the board needs to reach out to someone.
Mhm. And I think different, generations have different preferences for methods of contact. And I think that may be what, and as time change, people's methods change on how they prefer to get noticed or what they pay attention to or accept. So I think it's fine as is. I don't think we should just pin down to one because, times are changing, so.
What's your thoughts, y'all?
Yeah,
Bora?
I
Okay,
agree.
so sound like y'all agreement. All right, 1010, 1000. 1012, no comment. 1014. Supporting 30 calendar days to provide a response. 1016, no public comment. 1018, no public comment. 1020, no public comment. 1022, no public comment. 1024, no public comment. 1026, no public comment. 1028, no public comment. 1030, no public comment. 1032, no public comment. 10:04, no public comment. 10:36, no public comment. 10:38, no public comment. 10:40, no public comment. 10:42, no public comment. 10:44, no public comment. 10:46, no public comment. 10:48, no public comment. 10:50, no public comment. 10:52, no public comment. 10:54, public comment. Public comment. 1060, no public comment. 1062, no public comment. All right, chapter 11.
So can I just say one thing for transparency reasons?
Yes,
So the Louisiana Register changed all of these even numbers to odd numbers.
okay,
So
all right.
they said you need to use odd numbers.
Okay.
I'm just letting you know that in the final document, you're gonna see them as odd numbers instead.
Numbers. That's what Emily wanted to bring to my attention. All right, so chapter 11, 1101, compliance hearing purpose, scope, burden of proof. A comment asked if it excludes compliance hearings for other denied requests. A comment was provided during our public hearing. The Administrative Procedure Act requires a hearing if an application is denied, and our current and proposed rules mirror that requirement. The board considers denials of continuing education requests or something that involves supervision to be tied to the initial or renewal application process and therefore offers a compliance hearing. So that's the answer. There are no recommended changes to 1101 subsection A, B, or C that I'm hearing from the executive committee at this time.
Correct.
Okay, all right. 1103, no public comment. 1105, no public comment. 1107, no public comment. 1109, no public comment. 1111, no public comment. 1113, public comment to add subsection F, setting forth the process and time deadline for appealing the en bloc decision to the district court. That was a written comment and verbal comment. I think that that is something that we could let our council review, because I don't see that right in front of me. Emily, any weigh in on exactly what that commenter was trying to say?
Okay, so individual, if they're denied, they can request a compliance hearing before the board.
Mm-hmm,
Then they can request a rehearing before the board.
correct.
Then if the outcome of that is not in favor of the licensee, they can appeal to the judicial district court.
Okay,
So, that's what she's recommending, that piece be added as a rule.
okay.
So giving them the time frame required for them to file with the district court in the rule.
Right, so if it's 30 days or 60 days or what have you, have it and include in the. Okay, all right,
So you want to put a star by that?
I
and
put a star
request
by it.
legal counsel?
yeah, I put a star by legal
I
counsel.
don't think I agree with that, but
What'd you say, Jamie? I couldn't.
I don't think I agree with that. Cause I mean, you can file a suit, I think, for anything. That's up to you. You need to talk to your legal counsel. Like, what if that changes? I don't know, like, I
I was
don't,
thinking, what if
don't
that
like that idea.
changes? We gotta keep up with.
It's more
that. I mean,
legal.
it's-
So you guys are saying that, you oppose putting that timeline in there, right?
Right.
But we can talk to legal counsel about it, our legal counsel about it, but I do agree that if I want to file a suit, I'm gonna talk to my attorney
Mhm.
and they're gonna check to see what the timeline is.
Right, and to put that timeline in, it may be more restrictive, is that what
Right.
y'all thinking?
I think it may get to a point where it's incorrect.
Yeah. 'Cause if
Okay,
if it
If that law
changes.
changes, like, that's not something we set, it's like we're informing the public of the law. If we put that in the rule, we don't need to, like, there's already a law somewhere
right.
that
That could
determines that, right?
So again, so you know what, so I'm hearing both of what y'all are saying. We can very well decide as the executive committee to leave it as is. Our recommendation could be to leave it as is, see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So I'm gonna note that, okay? All right. 115, no public comment. I'm sorry. 11:15, no public comment. 11:17, no public comment. All right, chapter 13, continuing education. 1301, no public comment. 1303. Comments, recommend rules should also specify how long organizations must retain records. And we brought that up. I think our continuing education committee had brought that up too as well. The current guidelines on the actual application specifies that keeping the continuing education approval letters and brochure for the approved program for 3 years. So it's already written on the application. Right?
It's the, cover letter to the application that says, if you file this application, this is what you're agreeing to do.
So I mean, it's already written on a document that goes to the continuing education approval entity, right? That they need to keep it for 3 years from the date of the workshop. The commenter is saying that we should put it in the rules. I don't know. To me, it feels like this is more of a policy instead of it being in the. Put it in a rule, then we need to determine what that time frame is and then propose what that is. But the application
Yeah, right.
already clearly says, and it might change.
And we have to literally take a act of Congress to change it again.
Yeah, to
so,
change it
yeah.
again. As a policy, that way you can change it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
What y'all think? Okay,
Yes.
all right. Okay, so no change in that one, right? And the board may audit any continuing education approval organization by requiring the organization to submit documentation support on all programs the organization approved in a collection year. Okay, so that's still there too. All right, here we go. Subsection 1, commenters request information on the need to charge a fee to apply and reapply as a continuing education approval organization. So, yeah. So there's administrative costs to process these approvals and also to audit them. and to monitor the organization. So, the plan is to integrate the approval organizations with the website, which will also result in administrative costs. So there is a cost to managing all of this, right? And so we will need to continue to assess fees. Anybody have any
So
comments
the
about that?
comment, the comments requesting information on the need to charge a fee to apply and reapply. Okay, so they're just requesting information. I thought they
And
were,
the information is that there is an administrative
Yeah.
cost to manage this and process these.
I had to reread that first.
That's all right, no worries, no, I know. So we have to, there's costs associated with managing and monitoring and approving and all of that, okay? So that's why, that's the information. And we will provide written public comments, responses to the public comments. All right, 1305, criteria for approving continuing education offerings. Okay. Support language allows synchronous interactive webinars to count as in-person continuing education. We know that. All right, so here we go. This is gonna be a lengthy one, I believe. 1305 subsection A3. Request removal of the cap of 10 hours for distance learning. First of all, distance is going away. No one uses that language anymore. We use virtual now. So remove the cap of 10 hours for distance learning. The following was copied and pasted from a written comment. Talks about accessibility for persons with disabilities, talks about cost and time as it relates to convenience and online, talks about appropriate diverse in CEUs, talks about COVID and how it impacted and has changed the way we are doing business. All points taken. This is why we have a proposed rule to allow all of your continued educations to be received virtually. So that covers all of that, right? Asynchronous 10 hours.
Is still 10 hours.
Correct. Asynchronous virtual is 10 hours. 10 hours is synchronous. What does synchronous mean? Interactive. That's what synchronous mean. In-person, interact. When we say in-person, that means the person is in front of you, interacting with you synchronously. You have 10 hours of that. Then you have 10 hours of asynchronous. You don't necessarily have to have that interactive engagement. But with this proposed rule, all of your continuing education can be done virtually. That's the proposed rule. So the comments, great, but please know with that proposed rule, you won't be dealing with all of that, okay? So subsection A3 will read asynchronous virtual learning instead of the word distance, right? Teleconferences, telecourses, home study courses, and pre-recorded or internet courses sponsored by entities listed in this section or pre-approved by the board authorized pre-approval organization cannot exceed the total of 10 clock hours. Asynchronous virtual cannot exceed 10 hours up to 20 hours. Okay. What y'all thoughts about that? I think we're all on board with that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. 1307, continuing education teaching credit. How continuing education credit is calculated for repeat presentations when co-presenters are involved. Yeah, so this becomes like this whole back and forth kind of how many hours here, how many hours there. And I do believe that the rules committee was comprised of educators as well. So I want people to understand and know that the rules committee wasn't comprised of people that were not educators. And so when this particular proposed rule was written, I believe that they took that into consideration. In terms of how, so if you teach a class, I'm just throwing this out here, say like you taught the same class for 5 years, is the expectation for you with no changes, is the expectation for the social worker to continue to get the same amount of credit for a class that they taught the same content for 5 years. So, again, at this time, I'll see if the executive committee has any recommendations for changes for this language. We're open to that. Again, it's gonna go before the full board, but I will say that the rules committee was comprised of educators who drafted this.
So I see one of the first questions was about clarification about how to divide the credit. But it says in A4, if there's more than one social worker, it's divided, so you divide it.
Right.
So if it's 3 of us in 3 hours, we would divide it equally,
Correct,
and I think that's sufficient.
right.
And so the other part about how many times, I would say, I wouldn't want to get that into the weeds.
And I they had to as well, right? They didn't want to make it so,
Right.
where there was no movement in it. Yeah, so rigid. Thank you for that. I had no coffee this morning, y'all.
I need some coffee.
I had no coffee this
Too
morning.
much coffee.
You did, you had too much. But I think that was the reason, and I'm telling you, they went back and forth with this, and and so again, how many times and all of that, I get it, but what is your recommendation? So I'm gonna open the floor up to public comment. I will do that. But as it stands right now, there are no recommended changes made by the executive committee. It will go before the full board, again, but they will, for consideration. All right, subsection B2, ask if there are a limit on how many times teaching a course can earn credit without significant revision. Credit may also be earned through teaching a course in the Council on Social Education accredited program. The social worker will earn 6 hours of continuing education credit for each hour of academic credit awarded by the college or university for the course. Or so are you asking for the board to be more rigid and put in that? I mean, are you asking for more? I'm shocked. You're asking for more regulation? I'm
Well,
shocked.
I can appreciate the question though, because it seems like, hey, is that fair? But I also want us to think about, yeah, you may have the same curriculum, but you have a different audience. And like
Different
different
engagement.
engagement, different things happen in our communities. Generationally, there's different ways of thinking. And so I feel like being too rigid could be a mistake.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
that educators put a lot of effort into preparing, even if they've done the same course, taught the same course, they still have to think about current events and current situations and generations, the types of students that are coming into their classroom.
Right,
It changes.
It does
semester by
change.
semester.
And I think that, to your point, I think the goal was to not be as rigid with when writing this, right?
And just the
Go ahead,
feedback,
Jamie.
like the society is changing, the cultures are changing, and there's new editions of whatever book you use coming out every 2 years, so.
And current events
Yeah,
that
so
impact the
it's going to
discussion.
be, it may be the same
Right,
course,
yeah.
but the presentation is gonna look different each time.
Okay, so at this time, I'm not hearing any changes from the executive committee regarding this. Okay, 1309, no public comments. 1311, collection period comments are supportive of carrying over 10 surplus hours of continuing education. Okay, subsection C, commenters are supportive of specifying ethics and clinical supervision hours are due in even number years. 1313, distance removed, asynchronous virtual learning limit, approval to exceed. Support synchronous interactive webinars being considered in-person learning. 1315, prorated continuing education and issue of credential. Request clarification of how specialty type of continuing education, clinical, and a limit of 10 hours in no longer distance are treated with prorated continuing education requirement. There is an actual chart that is included in our rule that explains that. In terms of, I'm sorry, I read that wrong. No, that is correct. There's that chart that explains that. 1317.
Well, explains the prorated amount. I think the question is the specialty type of continuing education required, and are there any limitations as far as the asynchronous versus synchronous? That's what they're asking.
So in order to maintain, I'm gonna just say LCSW, in order to maintain the LCSW, let's just not say asynchronous and synchronous, right? So in order to maintain the LCSW, the licensee must do 10 hours of clinical. Just ignore the fact that it's
whatever.
virtual, just period. For you to be an LCSW, you have to have 10 hours of clinical. So I think that answers that question.
With the prorated, so for instance, if they get licensed in December, January, or February, and they have to do 15 hours, how many of those 15 have to be ethics
Or
or
how many have to be
clinical?
clinical with
Yeah.
the, so are we going to have to do a chart for
A chart
that?
For the chart.
A chart for the chart, like,
How
Well,
do you,
you're right, I
well,
mean,
so the consideration is this is their first year of
Mhm.
licensure.
mhm.
Do we want to be that specific or just allow them to get their hours? Because when they renew the next year and the next year and the
Mhm.
next year,
Mhm.
all of those requirements apply.
Correct.
And do we want to,
Be that rigid, so I mean, so it's, to me, it just seems like the questions are asking for more regulation.
Well,
And we're
They're trying
trying
to
to not,
understand.
I don't,
I don't think they're asking for more regulation. I think they're asking for clarification so they don't get in trouble.
Right.
okay, so let me rephrase that. So it's written in a way that it would allow that opportunity for discussion and flexibility and consideration. If we make it more stringent, then you're gonna run into that possibility, oh, I'm afraid I might get in trouble, because you might get in trouble if we make it as strict and rigid. So
Right.
I want people to understand that, right? So we are being very cautious in the way we are wording things so that it is not as rigid. Correct? Am I on the same? Because I may be
Yeah,
off.
like more words would, is
More words
are
is
more
gonna make it
regulation.
more regulated. It just is. Go ahead,
Yeah, I agree
Jamie.
with that, and I do think that the question was more for clarification so that people don't get in trouble.
Mhm.
But I do think that when you're prorating, it, leaving a little bit wiggle room is
Mhm,
better
it's
because
it's
you're
better.
limited with time and
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
money and all, so I think leave as is.
Which, if y'all think leave as is, if I'm missing it, please, you gotta tell me, oh, hi, I don't think I'm,
I think it's good as is.
okay. All right, so,
And our board office staff know, that as long as they get the number of hours listed.
I
okay,
do have a question real quick.
yeah, go
I-
ahead.
and I would like a break, but
Uh-huh.
that's not my question.
Oh.
The question
okay.
is about the inactive and emeritus status. There's for emeritus,
What part, yeah?
it's on 327C for emeritus.
Mm-hmm,
Okay, so there's some comments about the proposed response to the public. And on the last category on the back of the page, it says LCSW backs. And it talks about 1.5 hours for ethics, 1.5 hours for clinical.
mm-hmm.
So it's half. So how is this different from inactive? Like for inactive, we're saying they can't be backs because they're inactive. Is emeritus different from that? I may be misunderstanding.
So emeritus is technically retired.
Right, so they're
Right.
inactive in a sense.
Right, but the emeritus allows the, so if the individual inactive, but the conversation that I recall from the rules committee, the emeritus is also allowed to serve on volunteer boards,
Right.
and to my understanding,
Yeah,
right? So they'll
that's-
still be able to practice
little
in that
bit,
way.
right.
Mhm.
But
Like
then
back
the
supervision?
backs, yeah, the back supervision.
So this is a comment that was written in response it's not out yet.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
yeah,
so
yeah,
we can
yeah,
have
yeah.
dialogue
So-
about.
I think
that.
we need
Just
to,
understand.
not necessarily right now, but
Mhm,
consider the difference between the emeritus and the inactive as far as the backs thing
mhm.
and be consistent with it. It just caught my eye when
What
I,
I understood, and I, again, you know, I understood that inactive, you're not a backs.
right.
That's what I understood.
But then as emeritus,
Right,
they can be backs with 1.5 hours.
right.
Of
And
supervision.
so,
And the rules committee may have had a good reason for it that
Mhm.
we're not privy to, but I
Right,
just wanted that
right.
to have a star to kind
so
of.
we need to probably start that and get more clarification of that.
Yeah.
And more explanation
Yeah,
on
yeah,
that,
yeah,
right?
and there may be a very good logical explanation,
Mhm.
but I was just, it caught my eye as
But
I
I
was
think this,
flipping
it's a good
pages.
point, you know, it's a good point. Yeah, that's a good question.
And so, very brief. So I know we have a decision to make, as you said in the beginning, as a board, about if we are going to go forward as is and attempt these changes in the next set of rules we have to do this with, or if we're gonna stop, go back and edit, repost, have another hearing. And so if we go forward, what would be, like, what would be our next steps and how long before this is active? And then how do we compare? I'm just wondering if what the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, these are 7 changes that appear minor to me. And so what's the difference in time frame for all of these things that, you know, social workers have been wanting and needing? If
For
we
years.
stop to go back
Years.
to
Yeah,
make these
that's my concern
changes.
too.
Yeah.
I wanna push it forward so we can make progress.
Right.
But at the same time, I value some of these comments
I
and
do.
questions, and so,
Yes.
but then that takes us back maybe
Right.
years. Who knows? And so that's something that I think, is that something that the full board needs? to
Yeah, the full board
discuss?
has to, I think that's a good, that's something to also, you know, to consult with legal counsel a little bit more,
On the
because the
timeframe.
reality is, you know, you put a public hearing out there, you take the public comments, and you want to take the public comments in consideration. And honestly, these are some really good public comments, you know, and so we want to make sure that we are including the input of the public. If we take the public comments, make these changes based on the public comments, it will delay, it will put us on a different timeline
Mhm.
to get this published. It will put us on a different, or the option is just to move forward with it as is and keep us on a timeline. That is a decision that, but if we move forward as is, we will not be taking the public comment, these substantive changes, put it that way, will not be included. And the substantive changes, a lot of that has been related to the public comments, which we value, right? So we have to make this decision, and I think the full board is gonna have to make the decision
And let
on what
me-
to do.
Right, because the public comments, I do believe they're valuable, and I agree
Very
with the
valuable.
ones we, the executive committee agreed are going to recommend to the board, to go forward with, but they're not, I don't, to me, I guess it depends on what that time frame looks like. So, because, to recap, it's adding removing reasonable social worker, deleting a sentence
They're not
about.
substantive, Doc. I mean, the bottom line, even if you read them, I mean, you read it, board read them, in my opinion, they're not substantive.
No.
We feel like there's technical. We feel like
Right.
a lot of the stuff we concurred with the
It's
public, to
like
your point.
deleting the first sentence.
Yeah,
Providing or receiving supervision, is adding clarity.
right.
Asynchronous, virtual, 2 different times, adding volunteer to social work educator,
Yeah.
and barring an emergency with electronic transmission. That's the summation of
Yeah.
what we're talking
I
about.
personally, I wanna move forward, y'all,
Yeah.
because it's the public, it's very difficult for them to get their practices going when they have to keep requesting approval for things that really don't, that they shouldn't have to wait months.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I value their comments,
Mhm.
but it's more like typos and grammar and stuff that might make it clearer. Yeah, I do think some of it could be cleaned up a little and
Mhm.
then find out from legal about certain phrases and all, but we as the social work community,
Mhm.
the global community of social work in the state of Louisiana, we've wanted these changes for so long and we keep getting delayed, so
Mhm, mhm.
it's just my.
I mean, I think we all in agreement. To me, they just look technical in nature. They don't look like it's, but from a legal standpoint, it looks like it's substantive. Emily, want to say something? So, I saw that, yeah.
No, uh, I need to participate in the meeting and pay attention to what you guys are saying, and these people are asking a lot of questions in the chat that I can't really respond to and listen to you guys.
Right, that's okay. So yeah, we'll bring that before the full board, okay? We'll take, but what we'll do right now, we're gonna take like a 5-minute break if we can, just to kind of get some juices flowing, and then we'll return back, at 10:31 for the public. So we'll take a short recess, 5 minutes. Thank you. We can get some juices.
Like
Yeah,
literally
that's
flowing.
That's approved, huh? Okay.
Yes, so.
I think we're doing good though, y'all.
Turn
Okay.
The public thought about my coffee addiction.
Oh.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
Like they put like this cinnamon dust on the bacon, and so when you cook it, the bacon has like this cinnamon kind of,
Hmm.
oh, it's so good. If
Okay.
you could find, you ready? All right, everyone, we are back. 3 a.m. Just gonna ask for a roll call.
It had went off. There we go.
Okay, so we had a little snafu of technical difficulties, so just for the purposes of reconvening, the time is now 10:34 a.m. I'm going to ask for a roll call from Bora.
Hyacinth McKee,
Yes, present.
Jamie Barney.
Present.
Boris and Sari, present.
And Emily D'Angelo, our administrator, is present for the executive committee meeting. We are now going to continue on the agenda to the next item on the agenda, which is the FY 2025-26 budget. And so at this time, are there any questions from the executive committee for any clarification from our FY 25-26 budget? Any questions from the committee?
This is the same budget that we reviewed last time, or have amendments been made to it? It's the same one?
Yes.
Okay.
We just wanted to allow some extra time if there were any questions, you know, from EC to look at it.
Yes. So I spent a lot of time with it previously. So I don't have any additional questions. It was just highlighting, the fact that we are, the proposed changes to the rules are going to be, necessary, but, management of funds. I think, Emily and team are doing a great job. And Bora and Secretary Treasurer are doing a great job with, being responsible with the public's funds.
Absolutely, completely concur with that. Okay, so if there are no questions, of course, this will be brought before the board again for any questions that they may have, but we're good as it stands. All right, so the next item on the agenda is the social work compact survey regarding the centralized data system. So right now, the compact commission and its, I was gonna say infancy stage, but maybe moving closer to the top, because it seems like we are just growing on this. We're at the point in which now we are engaging in, we're starting to engage in dialogue on what this database system is going to be for this multi-state compact. And with that being said, the commission has sent out a survey to each jurisdiction to obtain information from them to determine what the needs, what they will be looking for in a database, right? And then also to assess what type of database does each jurisdiction have, right? And so we are in a process, of course, transferring to another database. We're in some changes. And so the survey was asking for us to provide what we would, what our needs would be, right? It was a 5-question survey asking basically what are our top 3 features or capabilities that we believe in a centralized data system must have to be useful. What's our biggest security or compliance concerns regarding shared licensing data? Challenges that we foresee in integrating our state's current license system with the new centralized data repository, any type of technical policy, budget, or timeline. What level of timeliness is critical for data accuracy and utility do we believe is necessary for the compact? How often will our state realistically need to update or sync information, in terms of integrating information? What concerns do we have around the use of our staff's learning curve, ongoing supports needs, those kinds of things, and then some miscellaneous comments if we need. And so our technology chair, bore along with our staff and in dialogue with our new provider, I'm saying new, but with Covalent, work together to draft some responses. And so we just wanted to share that with the executive committee. And then what we will do is, because the board does not meet until March 21st, the commission is needing this information before the 19th. Right? And so as an executive committee, our intention is to approve our responses that we received from our tech chair and Covalent and staff, and forward those responses over to the commission so that they can act swiftly, right? And I think that we can do that within our authority as an executive committee to make that decision. That does not have to go before the full board. The responses are technical in nature, very data-driven language that I think that our technology committee, along with Covalent, was able to successfully answer, right?
Yes.
So with that being said, I would like to entertain a motion from the executive committee to move forward to submit these responses to the commission from Louisiana, as is, in order to meet the deadline of March 19th, which is prior to the next board meeting.
I agree. I would like to just add, or it's kind of in here, but say it in my way about, I think it would be important for it to have the primary source verification in real time, like our platform has. And so I see that in a response, we were saying we can achieve real-time data pushes, but pulls can be daily during sleep hours. I'm gonna ask how often we will state realistically need to update our sync information. But I would like to maybe add, I definitely don't want to take away, when they ask the capabilities that would be useful, I think the primary source verification in real time
We need to add that.
would be, yeah, I
Okay.
would, but it say top 3, so I'm gonna leave, that would be 4,
That would be 4.
maybe a bonus.
All
If
right.
possible.
Well, okay, so that's fine. I mean, if there's a space on there, I'm happy to add that, that language, to the survey.
Yeah.
Happy to.
In the third question, Covalent gave some suggestions in their bullet points. They said budget, and then they said advocate for them to pay. We need to delete that phrase, make sure that that's deleted.
Oh, I won't put that in there. Well, this is.
All pay.
If it's copied and pasted, sometimes we might forget to take that out.
Right.
But maybe say something like our budget is very limited, because we are. in
So this is the thing,
middle of
it's implied, everybody know, look,
Yeah.
everybody, all the states broke.
Yeah,
Right
yeah.
now, we are.
But we
So,
gotta
and
let
they-
them
so,
know,
so just for the record, initially, there is some grant funding to
Right,
help cover
right,
this, right? And I said
right,
that at the last
yeah.
meeting, so I want you to know that. And so all the states.
Yeah, but let them know we are in the middle of developing a new system next to that budget statement, because every state's gonna say we all need money, but we're literally spending money on this new
On
system,
development.
and it costs more than we think.
So
Like,
as it
over-
stands right
yeah,
now, there's funding
right,
for us to
right.
start up with this, what is it? I think it's a DODT funding that's helped other professions to do their database. And that's committed to help us
Yeah,
initially with the database.
But I
But to
think
your point, you're
Getting
right.
it on record for them to know we're paying for a new system right now.
Okay, Bora,
So
I'm gonna let
that,
them know.
because it's not just the same as everybody else whining about, hey, we need money.
I'm
We are
gonna note
actually-
that,
yeah,
I'm note
yeah.
that, I'm
Yeah.
gonna note it.
And then they'll understand that, hey, they're in the middle of developing something.
This is not a part of our work plan.
Right. It's just- And
I'm putting it on it in the
Yeah.
middle of developing. I promise you, I will have it. I will let them know that.
so that way they know that.
And I'll make sure,
Everything's not
I'll let
conclusive.
I'll definitely put that in writing in the email to the chair,
Yeah.
to let them know that. Because this is in a Google survey, right? So boom, and then I'll send a follow-up email, okay? All right. That covers that, and, Emily, you put down there that Jamie wanted to emphasize the real-time component.
Did, and, we need to, another important thing would be for us to be able to query for data for the purposes of licenses issued and denied and licenses by parish. That's certain things that we have to provide to the state.
So this is what I would say is, so what's gonna have to happen is the comments that Jamie made, Laura made, and Emily, that y'all made, I'm gonna need it in that order, and I'm gonna, because they're asking me to reply to it, so
So
I'll
I
get that
think,
from you.
Your comment about the query, see number 3 where he's got review written?
So that might be
Yeah.
where,
And
Number
then
3.
maybe you just put in parentheses, including query, blah, blah, blah.
I don't see
The
that.
very top.
Where it says what are
Scroll
top
down,
three?
there's an email where.
I'm looking at the email, but you say, oh, no, okay, I'm sorry. When you say number 3, I thought you were talking about the third question.
No, 3 within the top.
Okay.
in the
First,
top
yeah.
person when
It
it says
says
the top.
review, but if we
Yeah.
just put in parentheses, and Jamie, your statement could go with number 1. Maybe like put a dash after that end of
So it
parentheses
says
and
schedule
say,
real-time.
say it,
for-
yeah, say it in the layman's terms.
Yeah,
So that,
cause that's what they're saying, okay, cause I don't know
because
what
that's
they're
what
saying.
he's saying, but I
That
like
is
how
what
you
he's saying,
phrased it
real-time.
too, so that, because
Okay,
That
hold
way.
on, let me slow y'all down. This is a Google, I'm gonna have to show you what it looks like, right? So I may not be able to do the 500 words that
The
y'all
baby
want,
characters,
right?
yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
So what we gotta do is synthesize it to capture what both of
Right,
y'all are saying,
right.
because I may not have that many characters to allow that.
Mhm.
Is number 1 saying what Jamie is saying?
I think so.
Okay, so that covers that.
But
Is
if there's
it,
space, we can.
so number 3 would have, what needs to be
In
added, the
parentheses,
query for
query
what that
for-
Emily was saying?
I don't
Would
understand.
it be helpful if I just did it for you? Not file it for you, but synthesize like you're asking?
That's what I was asking a couple minutes ago, yeah, if
I
y'all
will
could just.
do that for you.
Okay, so, all right, so that'd be great. So number 3 would include the query that you were saying,
That Emily was saying, yeah.
Okay, oh,
Just
Emily
put
was
in
saying,
review and then in
All right.
parentheses say.
that's
query
the ask,
for blah,
that
blah,
was the
blah.
ask. I needed to, however it's gonna go
I don't
out.
understand what, I really don't understand what you're saying about the query and review. I don't know what review means. I'm,
Being able
I've been trying
to review and assess the data for, like, when they get inquiries about, the demographics, how many social workers do you have in this region or that region? When the governor's office asks,
so we wanna be able to search,
yeah, we want to be able to,
there's this system for that.
Why? Because this is a multi-state
yeah,
compact.
yeah.
That we would
If-
be,
If we're the home state and we're issuing it, we have to be able to report that to the state. We're required to do that.
okay,
Like, they might want to know, how many social workers do they have in North Dakota that have a Louisiana license?
Oh, like that type of stuff?
Yes.
Oh,
oh,
okay,
okay. So
okay.
So Emily, you gonna write it up exactly the way you capturing what everybody's saying, and then you're gonna give it to me by tomorrow so I can press send, right? I'm hoping that we can do that.
Yes,
Okay.
I'll do it tomorrow morning.
All right,
I mean,
thank you.
We're leaving right after this for
That's
another.
right, I
meeting.
know, but I mean, the deadline is by the 19th.
Yes.
Right, so we need to make the deadline, so we need to make the deadline prior to the 19th. I just wanna make sure I'm capturing everybody's, comments, or what
Yes,
they
because
need.
there is a question that I need to answer about number 6. What concerns do you have around ease of use for your staff? Like,
Right,
you don't have an answer for that.
no, I
and
do
will
not have
provide
answer for that. So you still need more time on that, well, guess what, that's all right,
I can
Friday
do
then.
it. I can do it in the morning.
Okay, all right. What I needed is just to make sure that we can move forward to meet their deadline, because our next board meeting is not till Friday, that's
Right.
all. So if the executive committee is okay with that,
Oh, yeah.
all right, so that's really what the action was, why it was on the agenda. Otherwise, I would have tabled it to the board meeting. Okay, all right, anything else, y'all, with this one? What you think, we good?
Yes.
And I'm gonna tell you, the goal is to try to get this, which they're really trying hard. Hopefully the goal is to get this compact licenses out in 26. fall of 26.
Ooh.
Hopefully, but that's the finger crossed. Again, it's gonna be a phased approach, right?
Mhm.
So I'll keep y'all posted on that. All right, thanks for your response on that. Okay, next one is a request for bids. All right. Okay, Emily, I'm gonna let you take it over from here.
Okay, so at the board meeting, our last board meeting, the board recommended that we put out bids for, an accounting firm and for our recovering professional program. I've done a bid before for the impaired professional program, which I provided. And I'd like your feedback on who do you feel needs to fill that position? Like, does it need to be an LCSW? I believe it needs to be a licensed professional, but I believe the expertise is more important than the license. But I'm
Yeah.
wanting your feedback on that.
So I think it needs to be a social worker, some sort of social work license, but also have the addiction and substance use type certifications. It would be great if they had both, but I don't think they have to be an LCSW. What do y'all think?
I agree. I would prefer to give priority to a social worker, but I don't think it should be the requirement.
So it could be a non-social worker, but have the certifications for.
Right,
substance
like-
Yeah,
use.
because it'd be for the
Right.
LAC, right? You talking about like
Yeah,
a
the LAC,
LAC,
yeah,
which
yeah.
would be a really good candidate for
Mhm.
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to make it restrictive, but I do like the idea of giving priority to social workers, but.
They must have the LAC. Do you have thoughts, Emily? I mean,
The LAC is, I think that's a good point. And it doesn't necessarily have to be an LCSW is what you're saying.
Yeah,
Correct.
or even a social worker is what I'm
Mhm.
hearing. If
I would-
we can't, I mean, we'd have to compare the applications,
Mhm.
the resumes and all, and see who's the best qualified. But I think the substance use certification is much more important.
Mhm.
So that would be the requirement y'all are thinking. Definitely the substance abuse certification would be the requirement.
With preference for
Yeah.
both.
I think I think that would be the minimal requirement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Emily's writing it. She's writing it.
Oh, I didn't see a pen moving. I just saw her looking at us like.
We're readers, and I need the
Yeah,
readers to see
yeah,
my
yeah.
paper, but I need to look.
Sometimes when I'm peering over this, I know I look for sugar and I'm like,
You're like,
give me a crazy eye.
Right, yeah. That's what I'm saying. I'd be looking
I'm
for the
not
bat
looking at you
signal.
crazy. I'm just
Trying to see.
I asked you a simple question and here we go.
So I like, that's super. I think that's good. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, we can do that.
So I also asked Kathy for her feedback. And I'm awaiting that.
And when is her, when
So
did she
her
give us?
current contract
Mhm.
is over June 30th. But she's agreed to train the person that is hired. And so we would need to extend the contract for however many months.
I think we decided the last board meeting. I think it was to the end of the year.
Okay,
Was it to the end? I think it was the December 31 of
I
25.
think we.
We gave her some
They
extra
could
time to
extend
train.
if needed, yeah.
If needed
Okay.
to that time.
Great.
For that training, if you will, that handoff. But not at the same rate though. Remember, it wasn't like we wanted to be paying her the same rate that we paying the new, we were
Yeah.
talking about some negotiations with that too.
Okay, well then, I don't think did the board
We
say a rate? Because
didn't say a rate, but the board did bring up some concerns of paying duplicate services. Like, we don't want to. There was some dialogue, if I can recall, about
Mhm.
paying the duplication of services because of our funding issues that we have. Like, we don't need to have two IPP managers on at the same time.
I think we talked about like a, tiering,
Yeah.
costs, like, so initially, maybe month one, they may have the same
Mhm.
rate of pay, but towards the end, if she's just available for like phone consultation, if needed, then I think that was the dialogue.
Yeah.
Like, would we still pay the same full rate for you to be available?
And I think to your point, Jamie, it may not be the rate, I may have used the wrong language, but I definitely know the time being spent. So you
Right.
can't send me
Yeah,
like,
right.
it may not be the rate
Right.
might be the same, but the billable hours need to be
Would be
different.
less.
Yeah.
It's gonna wane off over time. I think that was
makes
the,
sense.
yeah.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
wanna ask Kathy to
Right,
take
so-
less money. I would want the new person to agree to a lower hourly rate while in training. If that's what the board wanted to do, I don't think
Oh,
it's
yeah.
fair to.
Right, so I used the word rate and incorrectly. I meant the time and
Right,
billable
right.
hours. The board did have a conversation about not having duplication of services. We don't need two IPP managers billing the board for the same
Same
rate and same work and the same billable hours.
Right.
So we don't have to adjust. But I think y'all know what I'm saying, right?
Right.
Okay. All right, LAC, substance abuse certification, any other qualifications y'all think that could go with this?
So we're reviewing the bid that was previously put out to see if we wanna make changes to it.
Yeah, if you had any recommended changes.
Okay.
Well, we'll definitely be changing it to a recovery program
Yes.
if we get it, if we get it promulgated.
But when are
Okay.
we, do you have time frames yet for when this is put out and when we trying to get, people to submit their
Well,
proposals?
what I was gonna do is look at the board meeting schedule, because the board has to offer the contract and kind of gauge timelines that way. With
Mhm.
contracts set to begin July 1.
Okay,
Okay.
so I like the stuff I'm saying so far. So we're saying because this one has that they must possess a master's in social work and hold a current LCSW. And so we're proposing amending it to maybe qualify to provide, services in the area of substance use or as the minimum requirement,
Mhm.
which
Are we
includes.
specifically requiring that LAC?
Yeah,
We are
LAC.
requiring that.
I don't know if we need to require, I think we should,
Okay.
I think we leave it open. Like, I think, cause there may be another person like Kathy who's a LCSW and not, is Kathy a LAC?
I don't know, is Kathy LAC?
Not that I'm aware of.
So there may be
Oh,
another
okay.
person like that who specializes in substance use, but doesn't necessarily have, so I think we should say, like, who has who has it within their scope to practice and has maybe a certain number of years experience working in that area and open it up to, persons who have it within their scope. So LAC, LCSW, LPC.
The reason why I only went with LAC now is because now we no longer requiring the LC, and I'm thinking
Yeah,
that since we're not requiring the LC, then we should consider requiring the LAC. That's the only reason why I'm,
But it's not, I mean, we're not requiring it, but they still are eligible,
mhm.
right?
Could we
That was
say
my
preferred?
thought.
Could we say preferred? And
Yeah,
that
I'm sure we
way,
could.
that way,
That could be a
'cause I think
preferred.
they should be in good standing with some sort of board entity, there could be somebody that has done great work,
Mhm.
but they don't have a license or certification.
That's why I think we should clarify who that is. Like, so someone who can practice independently. I think that would be a thing. So I don't think it should be a CAC, even, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not, but so like a LAC LCSW or LPC, but somebody who has it in their scope to
You're
practice
saying,
services
or,
independently.
like, you can
Yes.
list them.
Right,
And
and I think that would,
So what would you think of like an LMSW with an LIC, somebody who has an LIC and an LMSW? Would they be considered at all?
think it's tricky.
Yeah.
Cause now they need a supervisor, right? Cause they're still within the scope of social work. So I would say no. But I don't even want getting, I think we could look at that if it comes. If
Yeah,
there
see
is a
what-
LAC with, yeah, but
When y'all did this last time, did you get hundreds of applicants or did you get 2 applicants? That's the thing, I'm afraid we might get none or we might get too many, but
We did not get hundreds of applications. I can't tell you the exact number, but it was, let's just say,
like double digits?
like 10 maybe.
Okay.
Okay. See, and that's manageable, but if we get 50 or 100, that's too much.
Right.
But I don't think there are that many out there.
I think there's gonna be a lot of people who like just go for it though, if we don't put some. So I think the year's experience, I think practice, have it within their scope to provide substance use disorder services in Louisiana independently, however we word that. And at least like 5 years experience working with that
I think
population. or something.
that's right, right, what you just said is perfect. Like, that's the way it should be worded. Because then that captures it, right?
And then we can just pick the
Um,
best candidate
yep.
and not
That
restrict.
captures it, Jamie, that was spot on, in my opinion. Emily, I hope you got it, cause it
She's
was
writing it
good.
down, she's writing it down.
Okay.
She captured it really good the way she put that, and that does open up options, right? Any other changes do y'all think, not changes, recommendations for this bid?
And can we add to preference for persons who've worked with professionals?
Okay.
I don't know if this,
Yeah.
if those people are out there, but.
They may have them, you know?
Mhm. Okay.
I'm sure we said current active license, right?
Yeah, that's in there. I think it says and probably says like no, not under disciplinary action.
So we expect them to conduct workshops? That's one of the
If
bullets.
asked.
If
Okay.
asked, yeah.
Yeah.
I know one year for it's been a while, but one year for the NASW conference, the board's presentation was on the program.
And so you asked Kathy to
So
speak?
she.
That's good too. That's a good idea again to revisit that, consider doing that.
It
Yeah.
notes in the bullets to prepare quarterly outcome reports. Do we want to change to the board? Do we want to change that to monthly or go back to quarterly?
We've been getting them monthly. Well, we've been getting them every 6 weeks.
It's on page 6. It's like the 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bullet down. I like this so far. I'm just looking at what.
I think
we
it's
did last
okay for
time.
quarterly only because we meet every 6 weeks sometimes, and
Mhm.
monthly we don't. Unless she sends that report to the administrator and the administrator then gives it to us when we meet.
Right.
So how do y'all feel about monthly instead of quarterly? I'm
would
okay with
rather
monthly,
put monthly because
things
the
change, yeah.
expectation too is that you do it. And if we go to quarterly, it's not like we're asking you to do more at a lower rate of pay. You know what I mean? Like if we put quarterly here and then come say, no, I need a monthly report, it's gonna be like, well,
think
ain't what I
monthly's
agreed to
good.
do.
I'm okay with I'm amenable
Yeah.
to monthly too, only because things change, right? And monthly gives us,
Mhm.
I'm okay with that. What you think, boy? I'm okay with monthly too. I'm okay with that. I see the sense in it.
Is
Any
there
other?
something in here about their transition now? I like the fact that it's included that they would, help train their successor. 36 months. It's a 36-month contract. Do we want to put an auto renew clause on it? It's on page 8, K.
Remember at last board meeting? Let me see if I made this. I forget the last board meeting, a board member proposed a timeline. Yeah, so we may not do auto renew.
I know, I mean, I want to stick to the timeline, but I don't want us to get to a point where they're halted and we can't pay because the contract is up. Like an auto renew kind of gives you, like leave the 30s, I don't know. I see what you're saying, but like kind of leave the time frame and stick to our time frame. But have that clause there so we don't get to a point where we can't, where they have to stop because there was something happened and we didn't meet and didn't, right, renew the contract. Like a month-to-month auto renew. No, maybe not.
Now, let me say this, these are our recommendations that we're gonna be bringing before the full board.
Okay,
We, so,
so we're not releasing this till after the full board gets to.
right, Emily? Are we gonna be bringing this before the full board next Friday? She was looking for us.
I think I was ready to go. That's why I'm like, listen.
Yeah, so,
So,
I mean, we already made the motion that was what we were doing. So I wasn't thinking about bringing it back again to have everybody wordsmith and.
right.
Kind of wanted.
Okay, all right,
Ideas.
I got you. So we'll put forth that motion when we get finished with our adjustments and recommendations. Okay, any more adjustments and recommendations, y'all? To this contract, this bid. Contract bid. Of course, all the language where it says the social worker must notify all involved individuals, it would be the contractor, right? So everything that says social worker would be the contractor. If it's not a social worker. Term of contract, to Jamie's point, how we said 36 months, we just want to make sure that it's in line with what that board member's recommendation was. I don't know, I don't have it in front of me what his, but what we adopted last, but as long as that language is aligned with what that, was made.
And, can we maybe add one more thing? Something where they would say what their, what you call it, like contingency plan is, like if they were unavailable.
In
Like
case of
take
emergency,
leave,
like in case,
right.
okay, yeah.
Like how would people be able, what would be their plan for continuation of services?
Yeah.
I would add that in 5, work plan, project execution, maybe somewhere along that part.
so the hourly rate, can we reduce that or is that not, we just increased it, but that was after the contractor had proven to be successful and worked.
And that rate is negotiable at this
I don't
point.
think that
I think they give us
Proposal
a,
has a rate.
Oh,
in it.
I'm
there's no
looking at the
rating.
contract.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
okay.
they
Yeah, but they
propose,
tell us what is it
What it-
would.
Yeah, yeah, okay, that's right, because they're bidding, so they'll say this is my rate,
Mhm.
okay. I'm looking at the contracts,
okay,
Are y'all good with this, the changes?
I'm
All right.
good with that.
So at this time, I'll entertain a motion regarding, the recommended changes to the, scope of work and proposed contract and bid for our IPP manager.
Motion to go forward.
It's been moved by Jamie to, go forward with these changes and recommendations. Is there a second?
Second,
Okay, second by Bora. Any public comment pertaining to this motion on the floor regarding the IPP manager contract? Okay, any abstentions or objections? Hearing none, motion carries. All right, so now we have our CPA.
We've never put this out for bid, so all you had to look at was, the current contract and what the scope of work is on the current contract. And so my request to you guys is, is there anything else you would recommend that you would want to see your contractor do for you that should be included in the proposal that I still have to write?
Real. State. Seen that before.
I can't hear you, Jamie.
I saw the, prohibition of discriminatory boycotts of Israel section. I've never seen it before. in the
Oh,
contract.
so these, yes, so this format is
The states.
the states, what you're supposed to have in all your contracts.
Okay.
I think the biggest piece, of course, Emily, is gonna be more dialogue between you and the contractor, but certainly timeliness of reports is important, right? You know, we really need, and I don't know if I don't know how we word that, we word that we want reports from this CPA quarterly. Do we put that in there in a way that it's adhered to?
I think, but,
I think that it's always has been helpful when we do ask the CPA to log into a meeting and give a report. So I think it would be, helpful to require it, maybe not at every board meeting.
it's like twice a year.
Yeah, we can, and that's what my question to y'all, do y'all wanna put a time frame on it? Yeah, but
I
we
think-
want them to.
I think for what we're doing now, that could be one of the questions we ask them to present to us. Like pretty much for this amount of money, what time frame can we expect to get? Would you get monthly from them, Emily? Pretty much the document, what we need from them to do. And then tell them to tell us what time frame they can make sure that's submitted to us. And how frequently, how many, like with the board meets this many times a year or every 6 weeks, how many meetings can you attend? Like, so you give it, you put the onus on
Oh,
them
I see
to
what you're
say,
saying, let them know that, okay, our expectation is that you attend meetings, but then ask them how many
how many
meetings
meetings,
you
like we
attend.
meet this much, like give them like a.
And then say to them,
they
and then put that in the
propose
contract.
Right, because it's not the contract yet, it's a proposal.
Proposal.
So they're giving us a proposal to say, this is what I could do for this amount of money.
But at a minimum, what do you think, y'all think should be a requirement?
I'm okay with quarterly or twice a
Or
year,
semi-annual.
if they propose that, you know what I mean? Like, but somebody who's trying to get a contract, they may come and say, okay, I can come to 4 meetings a year and give you your reports within 10 days of receipt of the documentation necessary to do it
And then,
for $2,000,
right,
you know?
I think also
I think
we
it just.
should have somewhere in there that they are required to, if asked, to attend meetings though.
Yeah, I think we
Definitely.
need to say at a minimum, this is
Yeah,
expected.
right.
And then have them give us, offer more.
Mhm. So at a minimum, are y'all thinking semi-annual?
Yeah, semi-annual at a
It's
minimum,
fair.
see if anyone says we'll do it quarterly.
Right. Okay.
Semi-annual, okay. Is it required? Okay.
And we need the reporting within
then-
30 days
Mhm.
at a minimum.
Within 30 days, with the report within 30 days of the meeting. That's more than fair. I would think.
Well, I don't think we could say at a meeting, because a lot of that's gonna depend on when they get the documentation they need to complete it.
Well, I was tying it to meeting because we were saying semi-annual report to the board.
Oh, I was thinking about the monthly information they give us, like the monthly profit and loss statement and the
Oh,
monthly.
you talking about, so we talking about two different things.
Okay, yeah.
All right, we're talking about two different things. You want the profit and loss statement, you were saying that monthly, did we agree to that? Are we saying that?
That's what you know,
That's required.
That's required,
Mhm.
right? So that's done,
but
But
then what time frame? Because it's required now, but we get it 3-4 months later.
right? So we want it within 30 days.
Right, that's what I was talking about.
So that definitely has to be within 30 days. Now, we want them to come to the board and have a present to the board semi-annually.
Mhm.
That's what it, so that's another piece. Okay. All right, we following along. We on it.
And I would list out what these persons do as this is within the scope of work.
Yeah, so I think, are we doing good? Any other questions about this this proposal? This
This
big.
feedback's very helpful.
All right, so with that being said, I think I forgot to get a motion from y'all in terms of submitting the responses to the survey to the commission, because I needed that. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion regarding submitting the responses to the survey provided by the Interstate Compact Commission as it relates to the database.
So moved.
Been moved by Bora,
Second.
second by Jamie. Any public comment pertaining to that motion? Any objections or abstentions? Hearing that motion carries, because I need us to be able to get that out the door.
Mhm.
Okay, so with that being said, the time is now 11:16 a.m. I am going to open the floor.
I'm sorry, do we have to
Madam
move on to
What we forgot?
this one? the
So
CP?
you called for a motion for the RPP. Did you want to do a motion for the CPA one?
Let me
too?
do that one too, yep. So at this time, good point, at this time, I'll entertain a motion regarding the exception of the adjustments and recommendations made by the executive committee to the accounting bid and contract.
So moved.
Moved by Jamie, seconded by
BK.
seconded by Bora. All right, any public comment pertaining to this motion on the floor? Any objections or abstentions? All right, hearing none, motion
I
carries.
do have one question. Do we
Yeah,
need
go
to have legal review these before they go out?
They
or-
will.
Okay.
Legal does review, does it, Emily? Oh, I thought legal did, okay. It's not a requirement, it's not, no?
It's not a requirement. I'm sure that a lot of boards, their legal counsel probably does
Mm-hmm.
the contracts.
Oh, they do it, yeah.
This board has never, we're always conscientious of our money and what we're
Mhm.
spending,
Mm-hmm.
but,
Can we do it and
it's
let
up to
them
the
review?
board if you want a legal.
I think it's
Review
okay, I
of
think
it.
it's okay to put the request for bids out, but then when we actually do a contract.
Oh, yeah,
Have legal look at
Okay.
the actual contract.
all right. Are y'all okay with that? I think that's okay to consider that.
Yeah, as long
Okay.
as we, because I'm not sure about what requirements are with putting out a request I don't know if there's any legal guidelines around like how much time we have to give them to respond and all that other stuff. You feel
Well,
comfortable with
I
all of
can
that?
tell you this, whenever I, created this one, I used the example on the state's website for
Okay.
RFPs.
Okay,
We're not doing an RFP because it's,
That would be more complicated.
it's not over 50, that, we're not gonna pay any,
Right.
Okay.
50,000.
okay,
Right.
okay.
But I used that so that I followed that protocol.
Okay, okay, well, I'm good with it then.
Okay, all right. So, all right, with that being said, I will now open the floor. Well, before I do that, I think we've covered everything, right?
Mhm.
All right, so I will now open the floor for public comment pertaining to information that was presented today. Just want to let everyone know, our intention is not to be here for hours for public comment. I'm just doing this because I recognize the importance of allowing public comments pertaining to what we discussed today. There are no other motions made on the floor at this time. So right now, the floor is being open for public comment. Please use the raise hand feature to be recognized. The public comment is now open for any items that was discussed today on today's agenda. We're opening up the floor for public comment for any items that was discussed on today's agenda. Please use the raise hand feature to be recognized.
I saw him go up and then it went down.
We still have the same number of attendees?
We have 46 now.
Okay.
Well, if anybody just has a general question, you can always email the board office and we can respond to your questions. And actually, that would be my preference, so that we have an official record of what was asked and the response that was provided. Christopher Bishop's hand went up twice and then it went back down. Christopher, are you wanting to give a public comment? Maybe there's technical difficulties.
All right, well, if there are no public comments, the public comment, do you have?
He says apologies, hit in by accident.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, well, if there are no public comments, the public comment period is now closed. At this time, I want to take an opportunity to look at this agenda to make sure that I've got all the motions that I needed before we close the meeting. Got everything that we're ready to go. I think this was a great executive committee meeting, y'all. I think we were able to get a lot of stuff accomplished and, all right, so if there's none, our next board meeting is next week, next Friday. I believe Continuing Education Committee is going to be meeting next Thursday. Are they not? They're not?
No,
Oh,
they're
it's not.
gonna meet in April.
Oh, okay, so see, I'm getting in from, so, all right, so the next meeting will be board meeting. We'll see you all on Friday, March 21st.
Do we need to move to adjourn or?
And so we're gonna move to adjourn, yep, and so at this time, we move to adjourn. I was told you don't need a second to adjourn through Robert's rule, but I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank y'all so much. Good meeting, great meeting.